In a moment that lit the country's nerves on fire, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell defied mounting political pressure, refusing to cut interest rates, a move critics claimed was aimed directly at sabotaging President Trump's economic momentum. But Vice President JD Vance wasn't about to let it slide. What unfolded next shook the very foundation of the Capitol. The air inside the congressional chamber was electric with a silence that roared. Just moments before, President Trump had walked out, leaving behind the echo of a passionate, impassioned plea: lower the rates. Do it for the people, Trump had said. This isn't about me. This is about American pain. But Powell? He stood there, cold and composed. Then he delivered a line with surgical precision. Maybe the tariffs are the problem, not the rates. Gasps spread like wildfire. That wasn't just defiance. It was a direct shot at Trump. Powell's face didn't flinch, but across the aisle, JD Vance clenched his jaw. He waited, let it burn. And then Powell added, "We're not here to fix the president's mistakes." Silence crashed down again. That's when Vance stood. He rose slowly, deliberately. And the moment his hand reached for the microphone, the cameras panned in, the crowd froze, and the nation leaned in. "You said you're not here to fix the president's mistakes," Vance began, each word laced with calm fury. "So tell me, Chair Powell, who exactly are you here to help?" Powell shifted in his seat. "Because veterans can't breathe, small businesses are suffocating, and families are watching their dreams rot while you sit here with your motorcade and $300,000 salary pretending this pain is theoretical." The tension was cutting. When you cut rates under Biden, Chair Powell, was that for the people? Or was it because the cameras weren't rolling and Wall Street whispered sweetly in your ear? Powell didn't answer. "Let me remind you of something," Vance continued, holding up a document. "You blew through $3 billion this year. Not for relief, not for homes, not for student debt, but to renovate the Federal Reserve's building?" Gasps. "You chose Italian marble while American families choose between dinner and rent. You tell me, Mr. Powell, what exactly are you fixing?" Powell tried to speak. "Save it," Vance snapped. "You're not a banker anymore. You're a political operative in disguise." Murmurs exploded. Staffers checked their phones. Headlines were already forming. Vance accuses Powell of corruption on live TV. Then came the kill shot. Vance turned to a wounded veteran in the gallery. "You see him? He lost his leg in Afghanistan, came home, started a business. Now he's bankrupt. Not because he failed, but because you failed him." Powell looked down. "He told me this morning, if they're not going to help us, they should at least stop hurting us." The chamber was breathless. And then Powell smirked. Just a flicker. But it was enough. Vance stepped forward. "You find this funny?" Powell adjusted his collar. "Monetary policy isn't driven by emotion. Don't smile when people cry." It wasn't a comment. It was a sentence, and it landed like a blow. "You may be in that chair now, Mr. Powell, but when the people see what you really are, that chair won't protect you." Then Vance opened a folder. "Here's a fun fact. This is an internal Fed email. Subject line, delay all rate changes until post-election quarter. Dated 6 months ago. Signed by your deputy, the same man who donated $82,000 to anti-Trump. Super PACs." Powell went pale. "This isn't policy. This is political warfare. And the victims? They're not senators. They're truckers, teachers, single moms drowning under your freeze." One senator objected. "Mr. Vice President, that document could be—" "What's been misinterpreted," Vance said, slamming the folder shut, "is who Jerome Powell works for." He turned back. 3 cuts for Biden, 0 for Trump. Same economy, same inflation. So what? Changed? The name on the Oval Office door. "That's not monetary policy. That's vengeance." Vance moved toward a screen. 2 charts side by side. Rate cuts, 2023 versus 2025. And this is your legacy. Then came the moment no one could forget. "This is from my cousin Mandy," Vance said, pulling out a handwritten note. "She saved 5 years to buy a home, but the rates made it impossible. She called me crying, said, 'Why does it feel like I'm being punished?'" He looked down. She died in a car crash 6 weeks later. Never saw her dream come true, even... The cameras choked. "So when you smirk, Mr. Powell, I see her face, and I remember what's at stake." He let it sit. Then another blow. "You told hedge fund managers just 2 weeks ago, no cuts anytime soon. They bet on it, profited off it, and you guaranteed it." Powell's hands trembled. "You didn't just betray Trump, you betrayed the people." Then Vance told the story of Roger, a hardware store owner. Family business, closed. The final blow, Sunday school canceled because the church couldn't buy lumber. "You want to talk policy? Let's talk reality. While you dine on filet mignon, children pray for open schools." One single fist thudded the table. "These aren't just numbers, these are lives, and you've broken them." The chamber was silent. Then softer. "This wasn't always you," Vance said. "You used to write about Main Street, transparency, reform. Now you're everything you warned us about." He stepped to the center. "You've become the danger." The room exhaled all at once. "You were supposed to protect us. But now Americans need protection from you." He pointed at a projected map, red dots across the country. Each dot, a town that's lost its only bank branch in 6 months. Farmers can't refinance. Small businesses can't grow. He zoomed in on Millstone, Ohio. "My uncle lives there. His furnace broke. Bank denied him a $3,000 loan. He's 73. He's heating his house with the oven." Gasps. "Again. And you call this stability? This isn't stable. It's shattered." Then Vance hit the final stretch. "This folder contains every private meeting you've held since January. BlackRock, Goldman, Soros, 42 times. You know how many with middle-class groups? 0. He tossed another sheet forward. "Email from your staff. Avoid public optics. Coordinate quietly with fund managers." "You're not neutral. You're bought." A senator whispered, "He's done." But Vance wasn't. "My mother is watching this. Rent's up $400, grocery prices insane, and you sat on TV and said inflation is easing." His voice cracked. She cried. "How can he say we're doing fine when I can't afford food without skipping my heart meds?" Vance held firm. "You lied. Not just to Trump, to my mom, to all of us." Then the final dagger. He held up a photo, a tricycle, a foreclosure sign. This house belonged to a schoolteacher named Lacey. Husband left. She fought to keep it, couldn't. Moved into her car with her 5-year-old. His voice was almost a whisper. "You did that. And now America knows." Powell didn't speak, because there was nothing left to say. Now the sniffles came from every corner of the chamber. Senators shifted uncomfortably, some lowering their heads. JD Vance's voice cracked. "She still teaches," he said, blinking tears. "But now she showers in the school gym and pretends it's normal." He paused, then barely a whisper. "You gave up on people like her, and that's unforgivable." Jerome Powell didn't look up. Couldn't. The shame had grown too heavy. The silence was so thick you could hear someone cough in the third row. JD looked out and froze. A young man standing, clutching a folded American flag, the kind they hand to widows at military funerals. JD's voice softened. "What's your name?" The man spoke clearly. "Tyler, sir. My dad was staff sergeant." "Cooper," JD nodded. "He passed recently. PTSD. He couldn't take the pressure." A long, aching pause. JD turned slowly toward Powell. "You didn't just push people to the edge. You pushed them over it." He stepped forward. "And while you were signing billion-dollar upgrade contracts for your marble lobby, Sergeant Cooper was choosing between medication and rent." The folded flag in Tyler's hands trembled. JD steadied himself, drew a breath. "You're not the head of a reserve. You're the architect of a quiet war on the middle class." Gasps, tears. One woman fainted. Powell looked like a man watching. His reflection shatter, JD Vance grabbed the podium, not as vice president, as a son of a hollowed-out town. "I'm not here to beg," JD said. "I'm not here to negotiate with someone who made up his mind years ago. I'm here to show the American people who you are." He turned to the crowd. "I'm here for the steel worker in Michigan whose mortgage tripled, for the nurse in Tennessee, drowning in student loans, for the diner waitress sleeping in her car, for the silent mothers and the ashamed fathers." His voice surged. "You sit in the tallest tower in finance, but today, in this chamber, I stand taller than you." The room stood with him. Powell didn't. JD clicked the screen behind him. The first image. The Federal Reserve Building, surrounded by scaffolding, luxury black SUVs lined up. "This is where $2.5 billion of your money went." Another click. A close-up. Imported Italian chandeliers, gold-trimmed staircases, an executive dining hall with private wine lockers. This wasn't a renovation. This was robbery. JD turned to Powell. "And while you were laying gold tiles, millions of Americans were laying eviction notices on their kitchen tables." A voice from the crowd. "You thief!" JD pressed on. "You claimed this was for security. But what kind of security do families have when they lose their homes?" No response. Just a hollow man behind a nameplate. Then JD dropped the hammer. "This isn't the Federal Reserve anymore. It's the Federal Resort. And you are its king." The chamber erupted. Powell turned ghost white. JD paused for water. The tension still, buzzing. But something shifted. Powell's hands shook. He reached for a pen, eyes scanning the room like a man looking for exits. "Mr. Powell," JD said gently, sharply, "are you okay?" No answer, just a mic catching Powell's whisper. "I didn't think it would go this far." JD approached. Calm. "No, you didn't think anyone would stand up to you." He stepped closer. "This isn't about humiliating you. It's about accountability, justice. You forgot who you serve. Now the truth is breaking you." Powell stared at the table. JD faced the nation. "For too long, we feared this man like he was untouchable." He gestured to Powell. "But strip away the suits, the speeches, the polished lies. He's just a man." "And the tragedy," JD said, "was that he could have done good. He could have helped. But you let your hatred for one man blind you to the pain of 300 million. A senator whispered, "My God." JD held up one final photo. A foreclosure notice taped over a family's Christmas wreath. A grandmother wept in the gallery. JD didn't smile. He stood, and just then, a ripple across the Senate floor. Woman in a gray blazer leaned over and whispered into Powell's ear. His eyes widened. "No," he mouthed. "Not now. Too late." A sealed folder slid onto the table. Powell recoiled. JD didn't flinch. "You don't want to tell us what that is?" "I will." He pulled out a matching folder. "Given to my office at 6:12 a.m. by your own aide." He read, "Line item 447, Entertainment and VIP Lounge, $6.2 million from contingency relief funds." The room gasped. "You used emergency money to build yourself a cocktail bar while families skipped dinner to pay rent," Powell stammered. I don't recognize that document." JD tapped the screen, zoomed in. Handwritten signature. Jerome H. Powell. "You signed it. You approved it. You buried it." Uproar. Shouts. "Resign! Investigate!" Powell's tie hung loose. His water glass tipped. JD leaned in. "You thought no one would ever find out. And just like that, it was over. Not with a vote, but with a reckoning." JD stepped center. "Chair Powell, you took billions, dodged responsibility, blamed everyone else. And today, you were exposed." He turned to the chamber. "This country didn't break from war. It broke because its guardians chose profit over people." Then back to Powell. "You don't just owe an apology to President Trump. You owe one to every family that's felt despair while you dined in gold." He raised his voice, not with rage, but purpose. "Apologize to America." Powell didn't move. JD faced the nation. Then I will. Because no luxury bar, no marble lobby, no cocktail fund is worth the soul of this nation. Standing ovation. The internet exploded. Outside, crowds gathered. Signs read, "We stand with JD." JD checked his phone. A clip of him holding the foreclosure. Notice. 2.1 million views. Then a text. From the president. Finish it strong. The nation's with you. JD didn't speak. He didn't need to. The truth had taken hold, and Powell, still slouched, still silent, looked like a man aged 10 years in 1 hour, senators whispered. Even Powell's defenders turned their backs. JD faced the chairwoman. I move for a subpoena of the feds, full financial records, and an emergency audit vote. No objections. Senator Blake, a Democrat, stood. I second the motion. Gasps. The room turned. A vote. Unanimous. JD looked to Powell. Even your allies have walked away. You didn't just lose today. You lost the people. Powell's hands trembled. JD didn't celebrate, because this wasn't about glory, it was about dignity, for those who'd gone unseen. Outside, the Capitol steps overflowed with families, with candles, with signs. A little boy held one. My daddy cried watching JD. Inside, JD stood by the rotunda window. He whispered, "History will remember today." He was right. Because in that chamber, in that hour, one man stood tall, not as a politician, but as a voice. A voice for towns with shuttered factories, for mothers hiding tears, for fathers ashamed they couldn't provide. And then, a voice rose. From the gallery, Mr. Vice President, may I speak? Security moved. JD raised a hand. Let him. A tall man stood. Faded envelope in one hand, photo of 2 kids in the other. My name's Michael. I had a tire shop. Lost everything. My wife left. I nearly ended it. The room went silent. But tonight, he continued, you made me feel seen. He looked to his sons. I brought them to see what it looks like when someone fights for us. JD stepped forward, hugged the man. No words, just truth. That moment, captured, shared, viral. Across America, hearts cracked open, and JD Vance became more than a leader. He became hope. Hours later, alone in his White House office, JD looked at the Capitol dome. Messages poured in from teachers, truckers, single moms, veterans, people who had lost everything and now felt heard. He opened his phone, hit record. America saw something today, he said. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't polished, it was pain, and it was truth. If you cried, if you felt it, it's because this isn't politics. It's your life, your home, your family, and you deserve better. I'll keep fighting, but I can't do it alone. He looked into the lens. So if this moved you, subscribe. Share your story. Join us. Let's build something they can't bury. Because they may have power, but we have heart. JD smiled, and across the country, through tears, America clicked subscribe.